Hello and welcome to the reading from Agastya, the Siddha principles, based on the sacred discourses of Agastya Padipadu. Today, we will continue our topic about energy and energy centers. The last 2 weeks, we were talking about the energy fields, what is energy, how it is pervading, how we can connect to it. This time, in this session, we will start talking about the energy centers within the human body. Now, in this collection of discourses, Sage Agastya talks about the seat of knowledge in man as present in the Ajna Chakra, which is also an energy center. But before we go into that, let us first refresh ourselves about what these energy centers are within the human body. So, ancient sages of India identified 7 principal energy centers in the human body. These energy centers, shaped like funnels, are associated with certain regions of the human body. Now, if you look back, the energy centers were first identified and disclosed in the Vedas, that is in the 1500 BC. That to 500 BC, during that AD, that was the time period, 1500 BC to 500 AD time period was when the Vedas talked about the different chakras or the energy centers within the human body. So any yogic practitioner in the world today, if they are talking about the chakras, the knowledge actually originated in the Vedas, in the ancient times, because the rishis were able to understand not only what was outside the body, but what was within the body, and able to talk about it and record it for us, for the posterity. Now, what are these energy centers in the human body? So we know that science has made a lot of advances. We know that there are different muscles and blood vessels and flesh, everything that constitutes a human body. But what is it that gives life to the human body? Is it just air? Is it just food? Is it just water? Because as we talked about last week, if it is only these 3 things that can give life to the human body, then we should be able to revive a dead body with the use of these 3 things, right? But that's not possible. Why is it? Because life is completely that energy that creates life within a human body is not of the physical world that we talk about. It is energy. It is the primordial energy that enters into each body as a soul that actually gives life to the body. And when the soul withdraws from the shell of the body, then the body, as we know it, dies. So what else is there within a body which we are not aware of in the physical sense? There are 7 energy centers. So these 7 energy centers are located in the body, in different areas of the body. And C.W. Ledbetter, who was a theosophist, who was a clairvoyant, was able to look at it and tell us that it is shaped like a funnel. So it is through that the energy enters the human body. Different types of energy enters into the human body. So let us first find out where these energy centers are located and what they are. So they begin at the base of the spine and are found in intervals along the spine, culminating at the crown of the head. So we are now talking about the spinal column in the human body. That's where the 7 main energy centers are located. The spine is considered an important conduit of spiritual energy that lays latent in the human body. Now, are we talking about the spine as we know it in the physical or medical sense? Or are we talking about Sushumna, or the channel that is a subtle energy center, conduit, through which these 7 energy funnels actually absorb the energy? So we are now talking about, in Indian terms, Sushumna. It's the main conduit between the base of the spine and the crown of the head, through which energy travels. And this is not seen by the physical eyes. It is through this that the latent power of Kundalini, or divine energy, that is said to remain dormant at the base of the spine in all humans, are once awakened, travels. So most practitioners, actually, Kundalini has become a watchword. Everybody wants to know about Kundalini. Everybody seems to know about Kundalini. So what is it? It is nothing but a tremendous spiritual energy that remains latent in the base of the spine for all created humans. So every human, whether they are aware of it or not, this great energy lies latent there. We spiritual practitioners, as we practice and do our sadhana, then we slowly awaken the Kundalini, and then as it passes through the different energy centers, it is said that it releases some powers. You start beginning to change, and that change is very perceptible. For example, Kundalini passes a particular center, then your creativity becomes more prominent. Somebody who has reached that stage in the spiritual circles, you'll see them, composing verses at the drop of a hat. They are not even putting any effort to it, but words just flow through them. All these are indications of spiritual progress. So let us start with understanding these things. So Kundalini is the power that a spiritual aspirant attempts to harness. The idea is that once this divine power is awakened, man's latent divine wisdom comes to the fore and ultimately leads to his liberation from the illusion of life, or the cycle of birth and death. So why are we doing this? Why are we trying to awaken the Kundalini? It's because we know that it is the key to understanding our divinity, that we are all divine, and then we can actually find liberation from this cycle of birth and death. So that is the whole idea of everything that we do on the spiritual path. Now let us first understand again, what are the different chakras? The Muladhara chakra is known as the base chakra. It's right at the bottom of the spine. And this is the very first chakra in the human body. And if you read Agastya Yoga Siddhanta, I have tried to explain that each of these chakras also corresponds to the five primordial elements of earth, water, space, air, and ether. Earth, water, fire, ether, and space. And then we begin with the next one is Swadishtana, and that is the sacral center, and that is connected with the spine in that area. So we call it the Swadishtana chakra. Then it comes to Manipura chakra, which is the solar plexus or the heart chakra. The navel chakra, and then it comes to Anahata chakra, and then the heart chakra, that is the heart chakra, and then we go to the Vishuddha chakra, and that is the throat. Then the Ajna chakra, which is between the eyebrows, and then we have the Sahasrara chakra, which is at the crown of the head. So we begin with Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddha, Ajna, and Sahasrara. So each chakra has a principal function. Any imbalance in any or all of these may cause associated problems, physical, mental, psychological, and emotional. All these problems can create are created when there is imbalance in these chakras. So they play a very important role on the path of spirituality. Now let us see. This is just what I am trying to explain, but now let us see what Appa Agastya says. Explaining the chakras during the giving of the sacred text of Agastya Vadipadu, Sage Agastya says, it is possible to awaken the sleeping Kundalini through yoga, insistent effort, and Hatha yoga. Now, that is what a lot of people do in the world. Kundalini, they try to awaken by force. Many of us try to do it through the sadhana very slowly, and that is the right way to do it. But to do it by force, which is also possible, actually is not good. Why is that? It's because that tremendous force, when it rises and there is some kind of imbalance in a body, in the way we are, then it's going to cause detrimental effects to ourselves. So that is what Appa is going to explain now. As the Kundalini ascends, it starts alerting each chakra. As each chakra is alerted, the power of each chakra is released. At that time, if there is no purity in the yogi, then a conflict starts within the yogi. For example, let us see what happens if complete purity is not present in the power of the Muladhara. This is what Appa is explaining. So what is this? So as we explained, talked about, if we start trying to do all these practices without the basic foundation of dharma or righteous living, righteous thought, righteous action, then we are actually going to face problems, because our own dirt or instability within ourselves is going to conflict with the rising power of the Kundalini. So that is why in Agastya Velipadu, Appa keeps talking about knowledge as the very foundation of spiritual practices. And what is this knowledge all about? It is the knowledge about creation, it's the knowledge about why suffering, it's the knowledge about, the cycle of birth and death, about karma, about right action. Why we have to understand all this so that we walk on the path of dharma, because without knowing why, if someone just tells you, you should not, tell lies, you should not steal, you should not do this, then the person may try to do it, but they don't know the why force or the why of doing something. But once you know, okay, if I do this, this is the cause and this is the effect, then the person is going to change. And that change is permanent. So that is why Appa says, the jnana, which is knowledge, is the foundation on which a spiritual aspirant must build his practice. So there are 4 basic elements which are very, very vital for any spiritual practitioner. Knowledge, then comes devotion. Because of knowledge, you begin to develop the dharma, or how to walk on the path of righteousness, because with the knowledge that if you don't do it, this is what happens. So you're going to try to follow the path of dharma. And then comes devotion, because you're thinking, okay, if I know all this, then I should also have a higher power that will help me. There comes devotion. And then sadhana. Sadhana is where you actually start practicing the path, doing some techniques like breathing, like meditating, and all other associated things. But these 3 things, jnana, dharma, and bhakti, becomes the basis on which the sadhana is built. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen in most cases. In most cases, people just want to go, they want to sit, they want to meditate, they want to evoke Kundalini. So what happens if they do that? Then they're going to face a lot of issues, like I said, physical, mental, and emotional. And so that is why Appa says, before a practitioner begins to do actual sadhana, know all this, correct your behavior. You cannot get a PhD without going through kindergarten, without going to the primary school. And what is the primary school? What is this primary education? It is dharma, righteousness. Without being clean in our thoughts, words, and deeds, we should not even be attempting these higher spiritual practices. I understand in the modern life, there are a lot of reasons why people meditate. There is a conflict here, right? Because we are talking about, you got to know all this and be very pure before meditating. Then we have people who say, you got to meditate to get to that level. So there's a contradiction here. How do we come to terms with it. We have to understand there are two different needs here. There are some people who think, it will be good to meditate, and they actually think of meditation more as some sitting quietly and breathing, and then the very act of sitting quietly and breathing is going to help them calm down, which is a very basic level of meditation, which is more what you would probably learn in a yoga studio. People are just teaching you to calm yourself. And in this modern world where we are constantly bombarded by communication, whether it's in the social media, the news, the radio, or anywhere around us, that's a great way of beginning to look at within yourself. But is that actual sadhana? It is not. Because for actual sadhana, which we spiritual aspirants do, we still need to follow the basic foundation of knowledge, dharma, bhakti before sadhana. So knowledge, that is jnana, dharma, bhakti before sadhana. And in English, it is knowledge, righteousness, devotion before practicing the techniques. So we got to understand this. We cannot go into the PhD level without getting the proper foundation at the very beginning. Now, Appa says, Muladhara Chakra helps in rooting and stabilizing oneself in life. If there is no purity in this area, then the conflict arises between the awakened Kundalini and the quality of the Muladhara Chakra. Such a person will not have the opportunity to remain stable in life. It creates a state where the person feels, I'm not able to live, I don't have the right to live, I don't wish to live. To make this right, it is important to observe how attention is given to sense objects and also to health. Now, one of the main things that affects this area is guilt. A lot of us come into this life carrying a lot of guilt, and then we add to it through our associations with other people, with our own activities which are not righteous, which are against dharma, and then we start developing the feeling of guilt. The more the person has a feeling of guilt and the more he tries to practice the sadhana, without addressing why this guilt and how to correct it, that person is going to start feeling like, oh, I am not worthy, I have no right to live. Remember, every person who's created has a right to live. No matter what we see them as, no matter if they're being very, lazy, whether they're, doing wrong things, even those people, everyone has the right to live. We have to understand that as spiritual aspirants, we cannot judge another person. I was actually listening to Dolores. She's a Western psychic, and spiritual person. She beautifully explains, if you see somebody who is very lazy, who's not, very slovenly in their activities, they're not doing anything in their life, do not judge them, because they might be in what is called a resting phase, because they might have gone through so much karma in the previous life. They have come in this life to kind of rest, not to accumulate more karma, to kind of just coast through this life and then go back. So we have to understand that every created soul has a right to live. And as spiritual aspirants, when we feel anything like that, any negative emotion about ourselves, remember to look at the root of the feeling. Are you feeling guilty because of something you did? Try to change it. Are you feeling guilty because of what someone said about you? Then think about what the person said. Think about it and see if there's any truth to it. If there is, then change it. But leave it alone. Don't go back and take that and carry it with you. So that is why watch what kind of attention you pay to sense objects, as Appa is saying. And also pay attention to your health. It's very, very important for all spiritual practitioners to move, to be active. That's why Yogananda says, always do 15 minutes of the energization exercises that he has taught us. And I always wondered why. And now I realize when we do the energization exercises, or when we are physically active doing some physical exercise, then the energy starts flowing clean, much more easily within the body. The more stagnant we are, the more we are on the couch and not moving, energy starts getting blocked. And we will talk about the blocking of energy in the next few sessions. Appa has talked about it. So let's get back to Muladhara chakra. So watch what kind of sense objects you are looking at. And as Appa has always said, have a balance. Be balanced about what kind of things that you desire and what you want to experience. So always watch what kind of sense objects you're looking at, and also try to maintain your health. How do you do that? By right eating, by right thought and behavior, because even thought has a way of affecting you, affecting your health. So always have good thoughts, and also try not to indulge in excesses of material pleasures. Then Appa says, Swadishtana, and now when I was talking about the chakras and I was talking about the elements, I got a little, confused, because, just talking about it in a series, it's harder. But now, since we're going with each chakra, I'll explain. Muladhara chakra is associated with the earth element. The earth element, as we know, is not what we are looking at and touching, the soil, the earth we touch, but the 5 primordial elements are those elements that were used for the creation of the entire cosmos. So we have earth as a primordial element, which is not what we touch and see, but which is a part of the creative principle, which is also present in our Muladhara chakra. And that is what the Panchakshari Yoga Siddhanta, Panchakshari Yoga practice is based on. And that is available in the book, Agastya Yoga Siddhanta. So we'll continue with the next chakra, which is the sacral chakra, which is associated with the sexual region, organs and region of the body. So the character of this chakra is to enable good relationship between man and woman. If a person engages in unrighteous sexual behavior and has twisted desires, then a conflict arises between the Kundalini that is awakened and rising and the Swadishtana chakra. Such a man will indulge in excesses that are not according to the norm, and this leads to some disorders in life, says Appa. Appa is actually very frank, and he's talking about what is going on here. So again, maintaining purity in our physical relationship is very important for spiritual practitioners. So which means, with the right circumstances, as a married couple, with the single partner who is your wife or your husband, which it is a naturally occurring practice, and that is okay. But do not indulge in excesses, is what he's saying. And where are these excesses coming from? The excesses come from twisted minds. And that is what you see in the world over today. We see people indulging in physical acts with animals, with children, in a bad way. Why? That is so very wrong. I mean, they're really twisting the whole idea of creation, because think about it. A man and a woman have been given the power to create life. Why are people using it in such a twisted way? That is what is causing most of the problems in this world. Look at how many children and their lives are lost because one adult male or a female cannot control their urges. As we go further in the spiritual path, there will come a time when we won't need that anymore. We'll understand that it is not necessary. Lahari Mahashaya, who was the Paramaguru of Yogananda's hierarchy, he had a relationship with his wife once a year only to beget children. That is a true way of actually using the creative power that God has given us. Unfortunately, in the modern world because of all our excesses and also the movies which have become worse and worse as days go by. We are having explicit images being brought to us and fed into children, which is not necessary, which is causing all these things. So, as spiritual aspirants, we must not allow such excesses or disorders to enter into our life, because if it does, it's going to cause major disruptions in that person. It's not only going to cause problem with the person, but also with those around him or those he is affecting. So always remember that Swadishtana chakra has to be pure before we go forward on the spiritual path. So what element is Swadhisthana chakra associated with? It is associated with water. So we have begun with earth, now we have come to water. So earth, water, and then we have Manipura, which is the fire, and then Anahata, which is the air, then Vishuddha, which is the space. These are the 5 elements. And we will talk about the Anahata chakra and the Vishuddha chakra and Manipura chakra in the next session, because we are running out of time. So at this point, let us understand that as spiritual practitioners, we have to maintain purity. We must maintain purity before we begin our practice, serious practice. I know it is hard, but keep trying every day. Watch your thoughts, watch what you see, watch what you hear, and maintain purity in everything you say and do. If you fail, don't worry about it. Start all over again. Start and continue trying, but do not carry that failure on with you for the next day, because that will again bring you back down to the very basics. So maintain purity, learn that dharma, jnana and dharma have to be part of your life, everyday life, before we even practice higher spiritual techniques of awakening the Kundalini. So for today, we will stop at this and we will continue next week.